A blonde and a lawyer are seated next to each other on a flight from LA to New York. The lawyer asks if she would like to play a fun game. The blonde, tired, just wants to take a nap, politely declines and rolls over to the window to catch a few winks. The lawyer persists and explains that the game is easy and a lot of fun. He explains, "I ask you a question, and if you don't know the answer, you pay me $5 and vice versa." Again, she declines and tries to get some sleep. The lawyer, now agitated, says, "Okay, if you don't know the answer, you pay me $5, and if I don't know the answer, I will pay you $500. This catches the blonde's attention, and figuring there will be no end to this torment unless she plays and agrees to the game. The lawyer asks the first question. "What's the distance from the Earth to the Moon?" The blonde doesn't say a word, reaches into her purse, pulls out a $5 bill, and hands it to the lawyer. "Okay," says the lawyer. "Your turn." She asks the lawyer, "What goes up a hill with 3 legs and comes down with 4 legs?" The lawyer, puzzled, takes out his laptop computer and searches all his references. No answer. He taps into the airphone with his modem and searches the net and the Library of Congress. No answer. Frustrated, he sends emails to all his friends and co-workers to no avail. After an hour, he wakes the blonde and hands her $500. The blonde says, "Thank you," and turns back to get some more sleep. The lawyer, who is more than a little miffed, wakes the blonde and asks, "Well, what's the answer?" Without a word, the blonde reaches into her purse, hands the lawyer $5, and goes back to sleep. Little Johnny wants a BMX bike, so he gets down on his knees and writes a letter to God. It says, "Dear God, if I'm good for 1 month, will you get me a BMX bike?" He carefully folds the letter and leaves it at the end of the bed. He lies down under the covers and thinks for a moment. 1 month is too long to be good. He gets up and tears up the letter and writes another one. "Dear God, if I'm good for 1 week, will you get me a BMX bike?" He folds the letter and then thinks, "No, 1 week is too long." He writes another letter. "Dear God, if I'm good for 1 day, will you get me a BMX bike?" Looking at the letter, he tears it up. 1 day is too long. He jumps out of his window and heads to the local church. He grabs the statue of Mary, rolls it up in a blanket, rushes back home, and shoves it under his bed. He then writes another letter. "Dear God, if you want to see your mother again..." A young programmer and his project manager board a train headed through the mountains on its way to Wichita. They can find no place to sit except for 2 seats right across the aisle from a young woman and her grandmother. After a while, it is obvious that the young woman and the young programmer are interested in each other because they are giving each other looks. Soon the train passes into a tunnel and it is pitch black. There is a sound of a kiss followed by the sound of a slap. When the train emerges from the tunnel, the 4 sit there without saying a word. The grandmother is thinking to herself, "It was very brash for that young man to kiss my granddaughter, but I'm glad she slapped him." The project manager is sitting there thinking, "I didn't know the young tech was brave enough to kiss the girl, but I sure wish she hadn't missed him and slapped me." The young woman was sitting and thinking, "I'm glad the guy kissed me, but I wish my grandmother had not slapped him." The young programmer sat there with a satisfied smile on his face. He thought to himself, "Life is good. How often does a guy have the chance to kiss a beautiful girl and slap his project manager all at the same time?" A London lawyer runs a stop sign and gets pulled over by an Irish cop. He thinks that he is smarter than the cop because he is a lawyer from London and is certain that he has a better education than any Irish cop. He decides to prove this to himself and have some fun at the Irish cop's expense. Irish cop says, "License and registration, please?" London lawyer says, "What for?" Irish cop says, "You didn't come to a complete stop at the stop sign." London lawyer says, "I slowed down and no one was coming." Irish cop says, "You still didn't come to a complete stop. License and registration, please?" London lawyer says, "What's the difference?" Irish cop says, "The difference is you have to come to complete stop. That's the law. License and registration, please." London lawyer says, "If you can show me the legal difference between slow down and stop, I'll give you my license and registration, and you give me the ticket. If not, you let me go and don't give me the ticket." Irish cop says, "Sounds fair. Exit your vehicle, sir." The London lawyer exits his vehicle. The Irish cop takes out his baton and starts beating the living shit out of the lawyer and says, "Do you want me to stop or just slow down?" A young widow goes to the funeral parlor to plan her husband's funeral. She met with the mortician, who asked her how she wants the body dressed. "He always looked so good in blue. I want him to be buried in a blue suit." This posed a problem as he had been delivered to the funeral parlor in the black suit he was wearing when he died. However, the wife was adamant. "I don't care what it costs," she said, handing the mortician a blank check. "Do whatever it takes." The mortician agrees, and the next day called the widow back. When she arrived, the mortician revealed her husband in a very sharp blue suit. The wife is very pleased. "Thank you so much. This is perfect. Whatever it cost, it was worth it." The mortician handed her back the blank check. "There is no charge, madam," he said. "I don't understand," the widow said. "How did you manage this for free?" "Well, shortly after you left yesterday, another gentleman was delivered. He was similar in size and build to your husband, and he was wearing a blue suit. I asked his next of kin if they would object to him being buried in a black suit instead of the blue one, and they said they didn't care." "So you undressed them and swapped the suits?" the widow said. "That must have been difficult." "Oh no," said the mortician. "I just swapped the heads." A mom is driving a little girl to her friend's house for a play date. "Mommy," the little girl asks, "how old are you?" "Honey, you are not supposed to ask a lady her age," the mother warns. "It is not polite." "Okay," the little girl says, "how much do you weigh?" "Now really," the mother says, "these are personal questions and are really none of your business." Undaunted, the little girl asks, "Why did you and Daddy get a divorce?" "Those are enough questions, honestly." The exasperated mother walks away as the two friends begin to play. "My mum wouldn't tell me anything," the little girl says to her friend. "Well," said the friend, "all you need to do is look at her driver's license. It's like a report card. It has everything on it." Later that night, the little girl says to her mother, "I know how old you are. You are 32. The mother is surprised and asks, "How did you find that out?" "I also know that you weigh 140 pounds. The mother is past surprise and shocked now. "How in heaven's name did you find that out?" "And," the little girl says triumphantly, "I know why you and Daddy got a divorce." "Oh, really?" the mother asks. "Why?" "Because you got an F in sex." A Russian and an Irish wrestler were set to square off for the Olympic gold medal. Before the match, the Irish wrestler's trainer came to him and said, "Now, don't forget all the research we've done on this Russian. He's never lost a match because of this pretzel hold he has. It ties you up in knots. Whatever you do not let him get you in that hold. If he does, you're finished." The Irishman nodded in acknowledgement. As the match started, the Irishman and the Russian circled each other several times, looking for an opening. All of a sudden, the Russian lunged forward, grabbing the Irishman and wrapping him up in the dreaded pretzel hold. A sigh of disappointment arose from the crowd, and the trainer buried his face in his hands, for he knew all was lost. He couldn't watch the inevitable happen. Suddenly, there was a long, high-pitched scream, then a cheer from the crowd, and the trainer raised his eyes just in time to watch the Russian go flying up in the air. The trainer was astounded. His back hit the mat with a thud, and the Irishman collapsed on top of him, making the pin and winning the match. The trainer was astounded. When he finally got his wrestler alone, he asked, "How did you ever get out of that hold? No one has ever done it before." The wrestler answered, "Well, I was ready to give up when he got me in that hold, but at the last moment, I opened my eyes and saw this pair of testicles right in front of my face. I had nothing to lose, so with my last ounce of strength, I stretched out my neck and bit these things just as hard as I could." The trainer exclaimed, "Oh, so that's what finished him off?" "Not really," the man replied. "You'd be amazed how strong you get when you bite your own balls." Subscribe to the channel. This is important. It will help me continue my work.